this video I'm going to assess, buy the parts and reassemble my front forks from my T140V Bonneville. In the last one you'll have seen me taking it apart. I've cleaned the parts. I gave them an initial clean. They're not perfectly clean because I already know some bits will need throwing away. I can see that in dismantling I might have made the odd mistake or two. I'll let you know about them when I'm willing to admit to it later on. However, overall they came apart quite easily and I'm quite pleased with what I've got. I'd love it all to be brand new, but it's not. It is a T140V Bonneville from an August build for 76 model year. It's a mildly customised from the States, but it's not in as good a nick as I'd have hoped. I'm really intending to be riding this in the spring, so I need to get on with getting the rolling chassis ready and then put some time into the engine. So let's crack on and see what I need to buy. I'm going to go through them bottom to top. So we start right at the bottom with the screw that holds the damper rod in and the doughty washer and the drain plug. As long as the threads are okay and they're clean and not rusty, they're completely reusable. The screws that I'm using for the drain plugs, well, they have a little washer to seal. I'm going to see if I can get new washers, so I'll shove them to one side. And the doughty washers that have a little rubber ring inside, it only makes sense to replace them. So new washers, and hopefully that'll be all I need for that part. The damper rods, they live or should live in oil. And in the past I have seen where there's been water in the oil or there's just been water in the slider and these bits have rusted quite badly. Now these actually look virtually like new. So I've checked both of them over. I'm quite pleased. I'm going to get a new O-ring to go around here. Now there is something about, you can get I think phenolic O-rings which make less friction, less resistance moving up and down. I'm going to have a look at them, but I think I'm just going to replace the O-rings as they are. I don't think it requires anything really special to take money out of my pocket. That's the bottom part done. Now we'll move on to the stanchions and the top part of the forks, starting with the nut that's got a bush that goes into the bottom of the stanchion. Now this is where I have a confession to make. When I've removed these in the past, they are really difficult to get off. And the last ones I got off, I destroyed the tops getting them off. This time I used heat, and I was thinking that the seal or the bush inside would be something I could replace. Having looked now, I can see that it's not. So although these look absolutely mint, apart from the bush, I think I've got to buy new ones. And that is really, really annoying. I'm not sure how well I would have got them out without using heat. So it's something that you need to bear in mind. It's probably just as well to replace them anyway. It's a real shame about those bushes that you just can't get new ones. Having done that, let's have a look at these stanchions. Looking at the stanchions, I'll start with this one. Now there are marks on it and there is a little bit of pitting here and there, but if they were both like this, I think a good clean and I would be tempted to reuse them. Certainly if I was using gaiters, I would definitely use it. However, on the non-braked side, there is this scuffing and that's reflected inside the slider, which I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm not quite sure how this has happened. This would go in, and let me just check. Yeah, and I think it was in like that. And there isn't any play worth talking about. This scuffing means I would not reuse this whatsoever. And where this has been reflected inside here, I'm going to see if I can just dress that. If I can't, then I'll have to buy a new one. I think I'd like to buy a replacement one anyway, but I might, if I can make that so it feels smooth inside, I may just stay with it as it is. Moving on from that, we'll go and look at the springs. And I already pointed out one of them was longer than the other one. I'm not quite sure why that is. They actually look in reasonable condition. There's nothing, not a great rust or anything. But what I will do is I'll measure them and then I'll check that against the spec. But I may look at replacing the springs anyway. I'll have a look at that. So this one's 48 and that one's just under 49, so it's a centimetre longer. Now, if they are both within spec, having one slightly longer than the other on a bike like this ain't going to make a big difference. But it's something you'd have to think about. Now we'll assess all the parts that are the junction between the slider and the stanchion. Looking at the rubbers, and this is the seal, the dust seal off here, and this is the bump stop. They actually look fine. Another good clean, put some GT85 or whatever to give it a surface, and I think they'll be fine. I've thrown the fork seals away already, and this washer sits on top of the fork seal, and they both are rusty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see if I can just buy a rebuild kit that comes with the fork seals. It'll come with the Doughty washer, probably come with these as well, and I might find that a kit costs me the same as if I go and buy washers, seals and Doughty washers separately. So I'm going to look at that. These are reusable. That cleaned up, replated or just, you know, coated with rust proofing, that's reusable. So I could just get away with seals, but I will price them separately to see what I need to do. The final thing are these, and although they're a bit crusty inside, I think when I've put them through my vapor blaster, I think they'll be absolutely fine. Just need to make sure I don't take too much of the finish off outside here and make sure that I put something to stop corrosion for the future. So they're good to go. Well, that is quite a shopping list. The thing that concerns me the most is this scuffing on here, but as I'm going to replace this, not that much, but also, and I'll try to show you this if I can. Now when I put my finger in here, I can feel it being a bit rough. Now I am thinking of using a caliper hone just to make it smooth and then see how much play it feels like it's got, especially when I get a new stanchion. But at the moment, I do have in mind that probably should replace this. There's where I'm at so far. Definitely going, definitely going, definitely going. New fork seals and possibly replace them. So this section is for assessment still. Possibly replace them, but they would be usable. I could keep them. Don't have to worry about it too much. I probably could keep them. I need to work out what I'm doing with that, and I need to assess my fork springs, so I'll have a look at the spec on that next. So out of my forks, those are the bits that I'm definitely keeping. Top nuts, damper rods and that slider. So let's go and have a look at the computer and see where we're at after that. Having used a light hone on the inside, there is still a little bit of marking, but if I put in the slider and I didn't hone it very much, yeah, only to take the very surface off, a bit like when you're putting a hone on a cylinder for an engine. I don't think there's any movement worth talking about there. So I think that I should be able to use this slider. I will look to replace it, but I think that that's taken any of the higher bits off, and I think that will be absolutely okay. So I'm going to go with that. Look at the comments, see how many people tell me I shouldn't have done. It's an old bike. I'm now in a position to build these forks back together. I've bought the new parts that I intended, so I'll just quickly go through which bits I've got. The original stanchions I have powder coated. Obviously not powder coated this bit that's behind the seal. Probably could have done, but I don't think it really matters. I've bought new end stops for the stanchions. Couldn't replace the seals that were in the middle or the bushes, but I've bought new ones for it. I've got new O-rings for the damper rods. In fact, I bought 2 sets. I didn't realise they came in pairs. I've decided not to replace the springs. Although they're different lengths, they are actually both within the range that should be okay. And I've come to the conclusion that if I put it together with what I've got now, see how it is and what I want to change, rather than buy loads of change things, stronger springs, progressive springs or whatever, and find that it's still not quite what I want. So I want a baseline, so I'm going to stick with that for a baseline. What else did I get new? I bought 2 sets of seals. One's the original style of seal and one's the leak-proof seals. Now, it was fitted with leak-proof seals, and these were using these washers. Now, I bought them both. I've decided initially I'm going to use these, and the main reason for that is that I really want new washers and I haven't got them yet. I suspect I will revisit these forks at some stage. I don't think that these should leak with new stanchions, so I don't think there's a big issue there. So I'm just going to use them. Got new Doughty washers, and I've got new drain plug washers. I didn't replace the screws that are going to go in at the bottom. So I'm going to put a leg together, fill it full of Dexron 2, which is ATF. Yeah, for all intents and purposes. I know it says power steering on the one that I've got there, but it's the same spec, Dexron 2. And I think that that's either 7.5 or 10 weight oil. And on the internet, once again, you get such a variety of things telling you one thing and telling you another. And I decided to reuse the dust covers and the bump stops. And I got some lovely new shiny stanchions. Now, I must admit, these are the least expensive ones that I could find, but they're hard chrome, so I'll see how I go on with them. I have had this type before and not had a problem. So I've laid them out roughly where everything goes for this leg. Fairly simple. Along the way though, what I am going to do, I've cleaned it all and I'm going to give it all a quick blow again. But I'm going to pour some ATF fluid into a jug with a little brush and make sure I lubricate things. And also the seals, when I put them on, I'm actually going to use red rubber grease for braking. People say just use grease, but actually I think I prefer to use a grease that's supposed to be used with rubber, especially for putting that seal in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the seal on here and put the seal into the leg. It pays to have this warm rather than freezing, and this to be cool rather than warm. Goes in easier. And I'm just going to put some red rubber grease in. Use this on calipers a lot. And if it's warm, this should actually go in quite easily. There we go. You just need to make sure you seat it down well. And to give it that final bit of seating, I'm going to use a tube. This is actually from that Vivo bearing puller kit that I've got. That's exactly the right size for this. And then you just tap it all the way in. Next, I'm going to put this bush in. Now, there is some discussion as to whether you should put red Loctite or whatever on this. If I was going to put any Loctite on, I think I'd put some of the blue Loctite on. But if you put it in, nip it up, it should be absolutely fine. And of course, I've got to use my Imperial adjustable spanner. And just give it a good nip. You might want to hold that out in the clamp that you've got, but it should be fine. Then I'm going to put the damper rod in. I'm going to make sure that the Doughty washer's at the bottom. Screw that in. I also use some of the grease, red rubber grease, just to hold the Doughty washer in place so it doesn't fall off. And as well as putting it on the seal, I will give this a bit of a coating as well, just to help it start off. Now sometimes you try and put a plastic around it to protect the seal, but frequently people have said that's not really necessary as long as you're careful. So let's be careful. It's stuck on. I think that should be right at the bottom by now. So what we'll do is we'll get a torch, have a quick look, and I'll get the screw in. Definitely there, and I can see the Doughty washer. 7:30 seconds. Now if this keeps spinning, you can use a special tool to hold the actual rod, but as it stands, that's in. Just needs tightening now. At the end of the damper there is a bit of a slot, and I've got a screwdriver bit that'll fit into there quite well. You might have a slim socket that you can put over there, and the original tool would have a round part that would actually go into there. And I've got a number of extensions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some masking tape to hold all these together, because it's a real nuisance if they fall off inside. And then I'll tighten that bottom bit up. And the screwdriver bit that I've got is actually out of an impact screwdriver set. So it's an 8mm, so it's an 8mm socket on the end. Nice new aluminium washer to seal it. I'll put the dust cap on. I'll probably take a little bit of finagling to get it on. Less than I expected. apart from putting the springs in, oil and the top caps, that's both legs built. It's quite interesting to see how few tools you actually need. You did need a screwdriver, did need a big enough spanner for the bottom stop on that, 7/32 Allen key, and you could live with that. Nice to have though are these O-ring prizes with a nice rounded end. It really, they're a useful tool. Once you've got one, you wonder how you'd live without it. Tubes, I got this one from a Vivor bearing puller kit, and it's just the right size for these. Really handy to have something that's got a variety of these in. And my own special tool for holding the damper rod, although I have heard if you've got a wooden brush handle you can push that down and it'll hold it enough. The actual Allen key at the bottom does get quite stiff without turning that, so it can work out quite well. Okay, I'll put the springs in, I'll put oil in, put the caps on, give them a squidge, and then I can put them to one side, ready for putting on the bike. Having got them together now, I'm going to put in 190 cc's of ATF. Dexron 2, it's the same spec as ATF. And I'm going to stick with the standard first of all, nothing more, nothing less, so that I can at least judge a baseline when I've actually got these on the bike. Now, how many of you think I'm just going to lie this down while I put the rest in? Well, you were wrong. Because I thought I was as well. So I want 90 now. There we go. I can hear it glugging away in there. Right. Random spring. Goes all the way in basically. And then the top plug. $11mm Allen key, I think I keep saying that. And that's one leg filled up and ready to go. Leave that to settle, and it'd be a while before I put it back on the bike. Well, I think I'll call it a draw at that. I'll finish the other one off and put that with it. Hopefully you found that useful, and no doubt if you look in the comments you'll find out things I've done wrong or things that assumptions that I've made wrong. I've got these forks put back together pretty much to standard with the earlier seals. We'll see how they work out. Thanks very much for watching, and do subscribe, see what else happens with this bike, and see if I do get to ride it in the spring.